Yo, what's up, people? As the year 2021 comes to an end, I figured it would be a really good time to take a look back and see what I really enjoyed carrying in 2021. These are not necessarily knives that were released this year, although some of them were, but most of them are just what I really enjoyed myself. Because it would be a little bit easier to upload and also a little bit easier to watch, I will probably split this video in two parts. If you also have a knife YouTube channel, feel free to make your own list. It would be very interesting to see what you guys carried or enjoyed carrying in 2021. If you don't, just leave a comment on this video if you want to. And yeah, without further ado, let's talk about these knives, and they are in no particular order, by the way. These are just random. So the first knife I have here is a knife that I've been showing quite a bit on this channel. I really enjoy using this guy, and this is probably also my most favorite Spyderco knife at the moment. It's the Spyderco Military. The Spyderco Military is a large and lightweight for the size knife. Relatively thinly ground for a production knife, has a nice straight edge in the blade, a little bit of belly, and then a nice precise tip. Also a thin tip, nice precise and thin as I like it. And yeah, the handle is a lot more comfortable than on some of the other Spydercos. The edges are nice and chamfered. Like I said, it's a big knife, it's also extremely lightweight, and it's also reliable. This is probably the best liner lock that I've seen on any production knife. It just works extremely well and also locks up pretty secure, and the knife is smooth at the same time. The Military is a classic for Spyderco, and this will probably always be in my collection. I do really enjoy using this. CPM S40V on this guy still. I think Spyderco is switching their S40V to S45VN now. I have not been liking S40V in the past, but as I get older, probably my sharpening gets better, or maybe I am a better knife user now. I do really enjoy S40V at this point. I didn't like it because the lack of edge stability that S40V can have, but yeah, maybe I'm just better at using my knives, but I do not have that much chipping issues with S40V anymore. And I think it takes a really nice edge on the stones. It's one of the powdered steels, one of the stainless powdered steel that actually is kind of fun to sharpen. It takes a really good edge. And yeah, the Military, just a great knife. Tip down only on this guy. Some people really don't like that. I do actually like it because I have smaller hands and the knife is a little bit hard to, reach the thumb hole if you pull it out tip up. So tip down makes a lot of sense on this guy because you already have your thumb on the Spyderco hole as you draw it. Yeah, the Military, just a really solid knife. I have shown this a lot on this channel, and I probably will show this a lot more. Yeah, the next knife is much more expensive. It's the Reeve Sebenza large 31 micarta inlays. Just a very beautiful, simple design. The Sebenza is kind of a mixture between a gentleman knife and a work knife. They do perform extremely well. Really expensive price tag on these. The last time I checked, these were like, with the micarta inlays, they're about 625 euros, which is extremely crazy even for a high-end pocket knife. You can buy like 5 or 6 or maybe even 10 really good knives for the amount this knife costs. Crazy. Is it worth the 625 euros that they ask for it now? Probably not, but this is still a really good knife. I feel it's one of the best one-handed EDC folding pocket knives. Just a really solid deal. And I know that's very subjective because everybody likes different things in knives, and that's fine. It's actually kind of a good thing that everybody likes different things. The Sebenza is is a beautiful knife that will scratch up, the finish will scratch up as you use it, and it develops more character over time. I do prefer the micarta inlays on the 31 to the 21. I think it feels much better in hand, and also prefer the micarta inlays to the plain chain version, because as you harder use it, as you do the harder cutting, it stays in the hand much better. And yes, I do the harder use with my Sebenza as well. I do still see this as a cutting tool, and I do not babysit this. This will always be in my collection as well. I do really enjoy using it. Chris Reeve is one of the few brands that still does the hollow grinding, and that's just a beautiful thing, because as you resharpen it, the knife gets even thinner behind the edge, so you have a lot of lifetime in this blade. The knife is relatively thick on the spine, I think it's like 3.5 millimeters. Then it has a really pointy, fine, precise tip, and then it's thin behind the edge with the hollow grind. So it has basically everything you want in a pocket knife, and it's just very beautiful at the same time. The clip is works extremely well. Very simple construction, huge bronze washers on these. Actually on the Sebenza they are not as big as on the Nkosi. I did carry the Nkosi for a while too. I just like the Sebenza better myself, but like I said, everybody's different, and that's completely fine. Also carried the Umnumzan and the small Sebenza. Couldn't really warm up to the Umnumzan and the small Sebenza, but the large Sebenza is exactly what I look for in a folding knife. The Sebenza also has probably the absolute best chimping that I've ever seen on a pocket knife. It just has the right amount of aggressiveness and smoothness at the same time. It's just really nice. The only thing I would wish they would add on a Sebenza is the thumbstat on the left side, so we can open it with either hand. But apart from that, this is just an amazing knife. The next knife is not really as expensive. Actually, the next knife is not just one knife, but an entire series of knives, and it's the Cold Steel Voyager series. I carried all the Voyagers the entire year round. All the Voyagers I have, at least. This one is the clip point. I liked using this earlier this year. The Voyagers are just very hard to use, relatively inexpensive folding knives. You can get these anywhere from 70 to like 100 euros. I would wait until they come on sale and buy them for like 70, 75 euros, because that's the best deal you can get on them over here in Europe. And I feel for that amount of money you get really a ton of performance. All of these are relatively thinly ground. The heat treatment is good on all the Cold Steels, in my experience at least. I've been carrying the Cold Steel Voyager Tanto in the last couple of weeks a little bit more than the clip point. I like the Tanto because it's a little bit more robust. You can still pry with this, and I know you shouldn't pry with your folding knives, but it's my knife, so I will do whatever I want with it. And the Voyager is actually one of the knives that can hold up to it. The locking system is strong. They don't really get blade play even if you harder use them. I feel these are just really solid deals. I have been carrying the Recons in the past quite a bit, the Recon 1 that is, but I do feel with the Voyager you get even more performance for the money they ask for it. And like I said, Cold Steel usually has a good heat treatment. Hopefully that stays that way with the new company. Also carried the extra large Voyagers quite a bit. The extra large clip point is even thinner ground than the large clip point, because the blade is wider, I guess. And yeah, very beautiful Bowie blade shape. On the extra large, the Bowie comes even to what do I want to say? The Bowie is expressed even better because the longer blade. Sometimes a certain blade design needs a certain blade length to be expressed a little bit better. And I think in the extra large, the clip point really comes to its full potential, and yeah, it's very beautiful to see. Even the extra large Voyagers don't cost as much. Also, I have the Vaquero Voyagers. I have both the large, extra large, serrated, non-serrated. I have basically all the Vaqueros at this point. The Vaquero is a gnarly blade shape, but it's a really good performer actually as well. You can kind of hook material into here and then drag it over this belly and then end the cut with this nice, precise and thin, supported by a swedge tip. Very beautiful blade shape. This is actually kind of brave for Cold Steel to do knives like this, and yeah, I think it pays off. These are extremely well received by the community. AUS 10A steel on all of these. In my experience, AUS 10A is basically just a harder AUS 8. It sharpens up the same way. It has the almost exact amount of edge stability that AUS 8 has. It's just a little bit harder and it holds an edge a little bit longer. I think for the money you pay for all of these, the AUS 10 is just a good deal though. It's not my most favorite steel in the world, but I think it really performs well for the price. I will leave just one of these guys in here, so we have a little bit more room for the other knives that I'm going to show you. I think the I don't have the drop point yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to buy that. I have so many Voyagers, I'm not sure if that's really necessary, but the drop point is kind of a mixture between the clip point and the Tanto. So you get the best of both worlds, strength and slicing capability. The hollow grind, the Tanto is the only one that's hollow ground actually, and yeah, the other ones are flat ground. But like I said, relatively good cutting geometry on all of these. Now the next knife is actually a custom that you can't buy anymore. It's made by Markus Reichert from Germany. He's a really, or I should say he was a really good knife maker, because he's no longer making knives, which is really sad, because in my opinion he was one of the best knife makers in Germany. Markus Reichert was the kind of guy that actually made his own micarta for his knives. Pretty crazy the amount of effort that he put in. Beautiful canvas micarta on this one, and then the red liners, and then he polished the tang of the blade, and the polish slowly fades towards the tip of the knife. Super beautiful little guy right here. This blade is only 8.3 centimeters long, so 3.2 inches. A little bit shorter than what I usually like to carry, but this is just a very beautiful knife, and I really like using it. As you can see, the horizontal grind lines and the two-tone finish, and then there is the logo of his. The steel on this guy is cryo-treated N690, and the blade is 4 millimeters thick and comes down super thinly to like 0.3, 0.2 millimeters behind the edge. Crazy thin behind the edge, and I actually batoned with this knife even though it's so thin. And because of the cryo treatment, you get a lot more performance out of the steel. So the steel gets tougher and also holds an edge better. And that's why you can baton with such a crazy thin edge geometry. This is probably the most symmetrical grind and edge that I have ever seen on any knife. I'm not sure if the camera can pick that up, but this is just a very symmetrical edge. Just very beautiful. And yeah, one of the beautiful things about his knives was that he also put leather liners on the inside of his Kydex sheaths, which first it doesn't scratch up the blade, which can happen with Kydex occasionally, and also it is quite a bit smoother than other Kydex sheaths. So really nice sheaths. This ulti clip didn't came with the knife. This is just a modification that I put up here because it's a little bit easier to carry that way. Yeah, I think Fox Knives has picked up on his designs now, and that's basically the only way to get one of his knives, unless you buy them on a secondary market. Yeah, I think he undersold his knives. He did put a lot more effort into them than what he asked for it. So yeah, Markus Reichert is just an absolute legend in terms of knife making. The next knife is actually kind of an inexpensive knife, but a knife that I personally really like, and which is also the reason why I've modified it. It's the Victorinox Small Tinker. I've been using this knife for a really long time now. I always had the standard red plastic scales on here, and I thought it would be a really good way to bond with this knife even more and put custom scales on here. I hesitated quite a long time because these are not very inexpensive. These are the daily custom titanium scales with the brass inlay, and the beautiful thing, like on the Sebenza, is with this titanium bead blasted finish that it will scratch up and it will get a little bit more character over time, and it helps you bond with it quite a bit more. And I'm carrying a Victorinox Small Tinker every single day anyway, so yeah, I didn't mind to pay the money. I'm actually kind of happy that I did. It gives this so much more soul than it had. I like the Small Tinker. The Tinker is basically the Spartan with the screwdriver instead of the corkscrew, and I do use the corkscrew much more often, so I do like the Tinker better. And the smaller Tinker is just the same thing, scaled down a little bit easier to carry. Probably my favorite Victorinox at this point. I might actually do a Victorinox collection update at some point. I do have some really nice Victorinox knives, and this is my favorite. Yeah, it also has the secondary blade, the small blade, which I always keep really sharp so I can mess up the larger blade. Yeah, next up is another fixed blade. This is one that I have been wanting for a really long time. Kind of never bought it for some reason, and this year I actually did it, and I'm really happy that I did, because like I said, this has been on my list for a really long time. I have it in a setup where I use a smaller and a larger knife. The knife that's on this list is actually the larger one, but I'm going to show you the small one really quick, because this makes for an excellent companion knife as well. If you already have a large blade and you want a smaller knife, this is the BK11 that I carry with the knife that I'm going to show you in a second. The BK11 is a really cool little tool from the same designer. I actually put my Carter handle scales on here and red liners myself. I think it came out pretty good. This was a gift. I haven't been using this enough to put it on this list, but I really enjoy it anyways, which is why I'm showing you. Yeah, thank you by the way, Jochen, for gifting this to me. Otherwise this build wouldn't really have been possible. And I have been wanting to get the BK11 anyway, so yeah. The knife that's on the list is the Becker BK7. The BK7 is a cool in-between knife between the larger knives that are like 24 centimeters in blade length. This is just 18 centimeters, so it's 7 inches. It's in between the medium-sized knives and the really big knives, like the BK9 for instance. 5 millimeters thick and a really nice high flat ground blade. So it's relatively thin behind the edge, so it still cuts very well. You may think, hey, thinness behind the edge is not the best thing for a outdoors, harder used knife, but this is 1095, so 1095 is a pretty tough carbon steel, so they can grind this a little bit thinner. Very beautiful clip point, not as dramatic, a much more subtle clip point. It still has a lot of chopping power. I think it's like 365 grams, which is 12.8 ounces. So it's actually, for the thickness and for the size, it's not too heavy, but it still has a lot of chopping power. The handle is really designed for that thing, and it's also very comfortable at the same time. As you can see, I put also red liners in here and aftermarket my Carter scales, because the stock scales are not that nice actually. Yeah, Ethan Becker is a living legend at this point. He has been designing fixed blades for a really long time. One of my most favorite fixed blades designers. like I said, I do really like him. He actually designed this for Camillus in the first place, but then Camillus decided to produce knives overseas and no longer make anything in the United States. And then K-Bar picked up on his design, and now they make all the Becker knives, as you know. I need to try out the folding knife that he designed. But yeah, the BK7, just a really nice outdoor knife. Yeah, so this was the first part of this most favorite knives of the year list. I'm gonna do the second part and upload that right after this. So yeah, see you in the second part, I guess.